we are going to be talking about that controversial C word, corruption. We are building up to the 2024 general elections. I'm Abigail Visagie.
And I'm Morena Mothupi. And of course, we do not fly solo as we unpack these matters. So yes, we are talking corruption. It is something that is going to be discussed heavily, as it has been all the time in the build-up to the elections, but discussed even more heavily because now it's a question of who do you vote for? And if you don't vote for them, is it because of corruption? Those that you do vote for, do you think that they will, remove it? Do you think that they will deal with it? Have they convinced you enough that they know what to do to deal with it? After all, we are all human beings. We are all susceptible to, a quick buck that we shouldn't be getting. But yeah, we are, of course, joined by members who are, I think, far more integral, in this discourse of elections right now, because they are appealing to the youth, and we did have that conversation in our second episode with Denga as well as Gabrielle, where we were like, you guys represent the youth, but these two gentlemen that we've got here really represent the youth. They represent the voices of the youth. They are the guys that, when as media, we were following Fees Must Fall 9 years ago, it was guys like these.
Yes, at the forefront. Yes.
Of this. And it is that kind of situation actually that could, decide to an extent who their counterparts vote for. So we are joined by Nkateko, of course, who is part of the SRC at the University. Nkateko. I'm thinking Nkateko, my colleague in sport. We are with Nkateko here, of course, SRC from the University of Johannesburg, as well as Thato, who is, of course, part of the SRC at the Masekoa, University, of course. Gentlemen, a pleasure to have you guys here. Abigail did say it, the C word, corruption. Corruption is not something that we see at government level only, right? Corruption, we see it at school level as well. We're seeing what it's done to Fort Hare University, with the murders that have been there. We see it just across our tertiary institutions, and it's you guys as members of, the Student Representative Council who are the voice of the voiceless in the school, who need to challenge and who do challenge university leadership. We know how bad the corruption is at government level, but how bad is the corruption at school level?
Look, thanks, Morena. My former president twice of SMU. I was the president 2 times that side, but corruption, very, 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 something that is a problem across institutions of higher learning, I must say. And of course, encrypted within the systems that exist, even in institutions of higher learning. And challenging it as a single entity is, of course, a problem. But it requires an overall, what can I say, a collective. Because what you find that is that corruption is linked up. The same way that it happens in government entities, it also happens in the institution of higher learning. It's linked up. There's someone in this department linked to this person in this department, so you can understand the difficulty in that. But as student leaders, of course, who at most of the time have at the disposal of marshalling students, we have always, most of the time than not, I think, whenever we have seen wrongs, we have challenged it. And within the correct means, in institutions, there are internal audits. At times, even government institutions do assist. I think in one time, last year, there was an investigation of SIU into NFSAS. Which NFSAS causes major disruptions in institutions. In fact, if you go to all institutions, 26 of them in the country, NFSAS is at the center of disruptions, at the center of us getting angry. Every time when you get angry, the first thing that we think about is NFSAS, money not coming in, and etc. And I think they've been retrieving money, but at the same time, they've been ghost students. That some of these colleagues who work at finance create those ghost students. Remember, if you are to deregister, is these officials you go to speak to? Is these officials that you don't normally see, okay, I'm registered how do I get money, and etc. So you just give them your details because you believe that those are officials who are entrusted with these things. And some of them, at the last things they do corrupt activities with them. And those people, at times, because you don't know, you only see it when there is an investigation that has found findings, and you therefore support that because we really, really want a corrupt-free institutions of higher learning. In fact, we want free education, and those who are fighting for fees must fall. Their ultimate goal was free education. NFSAS is a problem. In fact, it's not a preference. It is just a system we have found that is currently at the center of problems in institutions of higher learning.
But the board has been dissolved. Yeah. Some people are calling for the minister to step down. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Are we moving in the right direction to finally getting NSFAS to a point where it's a system that's working? Do we still have a long way to go?
Yeah, well, look, NSFAS alone is a very huge challenge. For example, why there's so much chaos happening right now at NSFAS is because of the service providers that they've appointed to make direct payments to students. What I mean by that is that there will be a company called Norako or whatsoever that pays into students' accounts. And we've really had a serious problem with these service providers coming into play and paying directly to students, because so many of our students have suffered not receiving this money.
Yes, we've seen instances where students are sleeping on the street. They don't have accommodation.
It gets worse. And we question such things like, who's owning this company? Who recommended this company? Why is this company chosen for these certain services and so forth? Dissolving the NSFAS board, good. They've not been doing great. Do you want the minister to resign, to step down? We've always said it. As the South African Student Congress, that we do not resonate with the minister, and we think the governing organization can really deploy someone better than him.
Who would be the better option?
Look, it's up to the governing organization to choose who will be a better option. But I can confirm to you right now, the man at job now is not the best man.
Yeah, just as a buy-in in this one of Blade. Blade must fall. Look, the guy must fall. In fact, the guy must not come back. He has done enough mess, has caused us disruptions in institutions of higher learning. And look, I mean, the board is dissolved. The board being dissolved and the companies are removed. But this is the same people that he got a report somewhere last year in October that these things were done in a corrupt manner. He still proceeded to have them to February when there were disruption in the institution of higher learning, and then he still took his time. The investigation happened. The report is at his disposal. Why is he taking time? Look, the board is on one end an oversight problematic, but the problem is engraved in that NFSA.
Now, I want to jump in there and maybe hang on to Abigail's point when Thato to say, okay, fine. Nkateko was saying that there's perhaps no specific person that is dependent on the governing party to choose the minister, right? Fine. What kind of minister are you looking for in terms of characteristics, in terms of work ethic? Do you think, should the ruling party come back and be the one that governs? Yeah. Do you trust that they will find someone who's better than Blade? And maybe even, it's not maybe just Blade's problem. Maybe even Buti Manamela is part of that problem. Or does he come in?
Look, I'm saying, Freedom Charter says the doors of teaching and learning, culture, must be open to all. For all. The governing organization believes that. It believes that, and it simply means that the governing organization must then, in its policies, speak about free education. And if the governing organization, anyone who resonates with the governing organization when it says free education, then anyone in that party must be able to implement the policies that will speak about free education. We are trying to make sure that we are not creating an environment whereby it will subject those who are found as missing middle, those who are found to be needy, subjected to being out of school.
But Kodongwana says to you in his budget speech, guys, I don't have the money. When Jacob Zuma promised it to you in the middle of Fees Must Fall, he said we could do it, free education will take place. But then the Minister of Finance, the man that is dealing with your purse, says to you, you're going to disrupt my fiscus. Do you want to pay more for everything else just so that I can pay for your free education?
Look, you see what we want, in fact, it's not a character. We just want free education. Our call is for free education.
How realistic is that, Doctor?
Yeah. So how realistic is that? It's very realistic. Ministers, they've got a motorcade of 20 cars following each other. Cut those things. That person can drive. They can go and go to get a license, drive themselves. Why do you have a motorcade?
Because Thato's going to bump into the minister in the middle of the road.
No, it's because you're a public representative. You're a public representative that is supposed to represent us. You went to office to say you are available to represent all of us. Now you go to office, you want protection from the people that you said you are going to serve. You understand? It's very hypocritical, because if some of the things are cut off, if you cut off the budget of the vice chancellors, you pay vice chancellors millions, you pay deputy vice chancellors millions, yet you want free education, you want students to still pay for fees, you are paying for ministers. That's a lot of money that you are putting in place for.
How then do we regulate it? Because some people are of the opinion that if anything is free, it will be taken for granted. How do we make sure that if education is free in South Africa, people aren't taking it for granted, people aren't wasting that opportunity?
Let me make it very practical for you. Cuba, a very good example to us. They have free education. So I want to make it very practical to a point where we can all understand it here. All these universities have a surplus budget. And it is very ridiculous to find students who are financially excluded while the university has a 4+ billion surplus. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I mean, that budget could have assisted these students to go to school. So how are we making it practical is that we have so many reserves. I mean, these universities get incentives from NSFAS, right? And we're simply saying that we have these universities who have reserves in their budgets, while we still have students who are financially excluded. Why don't they use the budget to find education for these students?
Policy, and you will excuse me, I went to a different kind of tertiary school that you were financially excluded in any case, you know, but financial exclusion, is it not as a consequence of, you said when you started in first year that you could afford? And then obviously circumstance resulted in you being unable to afford. So you essentially abided by the policy of the university that is in place until such point as you couldn't. And because of policy...
Financial exclusion is a result of demanding education. It's not a result of I'm committed to pay. Of course, that in paper it's there. But I went there, I took that decision because I needed to have education. It's a result of wanting education, the best way to put it.
Let me add there on financial exclusion. This is a problem, you see. How is it a problem? That's why I'm saying free education for all. If you check NFSAS, it's just a typical one that comes from the state. And that's why I'm saying it's at the center of most of the things. Once you, so NFSAS, it took about 6 months to give people money last year. So if people did not have money, that means they will fail, you know, because if you can't study, you have to look for ways to eat and etc. All of those many things that complicate a student's life. And then it's N+1. So if you don't perform, they do what? They defund you. If they don't fund you, that means that you have to incur the fees. In simplicity, we know students who have been recipient of SASSA. They are automatic NFSAS beneficiaries. That means that NFSAS is your only way in which you depend on. Then you automatically get financially excluded. Although even you went in institution of higher learning, your idea was that when you get there, you are going to get an NFSAS which is going to give you access to education. That's why we are saying that if you see all of these administrative problems that are being put in place, they're the ones that frustrate everything, you know, because when you put in a system in place, it means everybody must try to comply in that. When people must comply in that, then you find that there's a problem with that administrative problem that you put in place for everybody too. You know, so financial exclusion is one of the biggest problems. And you go across, you know, there was some report that came out last year with the Vice Chancellor's budget. Those guys earn millions of money. And once still earning millions of money with CFOs and all of those, after earning those millions, they will still not want to admit a student who wants to, you know, just to, you know, we want the bare minimum at most. You want to finish school, you want to start buying sofas at home, get a job. Like most of the people, we don't want a lot of, we don't asking for too much. This is below the bar, you know, this is below the bar.
Is that why you think, so statistically, they were sitting at 69.69%. This is the ruling governing party 20 years ago, when we went to elections 20 years ago. As of 5 years ago, It was 5 years ago on this day, actually, when we went to go vote. As of 5 years ago, they were sitting 12% less, in terms of the percentage that they got from elections. Between 2004, when President Thabo Mbeki was in power, and 5 years ago, when President Cyril Ramaphosa were in power, we had fees must fall. We had students who were beaten, arrested. So much has happened in just these 20 years that we've been in. Let's not even talk 30 years of democracy, 20 years of fail. Do you feel that 12% that was lost, where at one point, 2/3 majority guaranteed, the ANC will rule until Jesus comes back, said Jacob Zuma. Do you feel that 12% decline is because of matters like this? Is because you guys have become radicalized?
Morena, let's look at what the Markdata says. It says, why is the ANC losing support? 39% says it's due to corruption. 28% says it's due to unemployment issues. 19% says it's due to load shedding. 7% says it's due to poverty. And 6% says it's due to the water crisis that we're currently experiencing in South Africa. Do you agree with these stats? Do you think these are the pertinent reasons and issues why the ANC has, like Morena said, lost support over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I agree with some of those issues. We are students. Before we were students, we also belong to a community, and
Yes.
we're experiencing
These
that.
are issues that impact you.
Of course. And look, we want a governing organization where if we cough as a society, it catches cold, it addresses the issues. And if we're speaking about 30 years of perfection, then it would be correct to come here and say there's no perfection. But if we're speaking about 30 years of governance, then we are bound to find these issues because we want to make an analysis of the governance. These issues are existing. Now, we take these issues, we submit them to the governing organization. We ask them, how do we resolve these issues? And if there's a commitment to change on those issues, then I think we are safe to reinvest our trust into the governing organization. Because I am here as a beneficiary of one of the policies of the governing organization. I was born to a mother who was 22 years old at that time and didn't have any job, was unemployed. I grew up under SASA. I went to a public school. Fast forward is that I went to a higher learning institution, benefited from NSFAS. That's why I'm here. So some of these policies in 30 years have been implemented correctly, and some have not been implemented correctly. But it does not mean the policies are wrong. It means that the person that was put into power at that time to implement the policies did the wrong job. Implementation did a wrong job. How do we fix it? We then need to find a crop of leadership that will, of course, fix that.
And that's where I want to come. That's where I want to come, Thato. The next crop of leadership. I want to highlight again. Fees must fall. Sure. There were leaders who stood front and center, who then got dissolved by certain organizations, and by dissolution by certain organizations means you start thinking like them. You start, fulfilling their mandates. And it may not be mandates that you initially agreed with. And I'm pretty sure we all know which certain individuals of which I speak. So if we are saying that, corruption right now is because of this particular generation of leaders that we have, they will cease to exist. But that corruption is going to fall onto somebody's lap. Right? And that somebody is going to be someone who's young. So how confident can we be in this room that those out there, the youth out there, will not take that baton from the current corrupt generation and carry it on? Because somebody is benefiting from the corruption that is currently taking place. And that somebody is not only the elderly generation, it is the youth as well. So how confident can we be that this generation of youth that we have, that is responsible for changing, the future of this country, are not going to be essentially just doing the same thing?
Thanks, brother. Look, you see, there is a trend of a decline, decline, of course, from the governing party's support. And of course, there are multiple facets of issues that affects most of the time the youth and young people in particular. Below the years of 35, young adults, and etc. and etc. And at this point in time, I think, and this is my opinion, that the people that will either go in governance, who are young, by the way, who have an appreciation of what young people are going through outside, will have no other choice but to do what? To at least improve circumstances. Because, and I'm saying this because I think this year's elections are the ones that are highly competitive, highly contested on the basis of service delivery for people who have always hoped, you know? And the people who will simply go there to govern, in particular to govern, will know that if they then fumble,
We'll be there.
But yet President Cyril Ramaphosa told this beautiful tale of Tinswalo and the life that Tinswalo has lived and benefited over the last 30 years. As young people, did you resonate with that story? Or do you think that the government is so far removed from reality that they're not understanding what's actually happening on the ground?
Look, there is Nkateko here, my friend, who has spoken about his story as a Tinswalo of sort. You see, when you do research, you know there's a pool that you take from. And there's a pool that, you know, will of course, outside of that, not find themselves within the circumstances of the outcome of the majority of your study. There are those that might have benefited, and there are those that still feel aggrieved to date. There are those that, you know, you still find in a household people who are unemployed. But there are still people who are employed. But there are still people unemployed to date. There are still people without water to date. But there are people with water. So there must be a variety in which we come to say, okay, sharp. No. In essence, there are those that have moved, you know, got to school, went to eat, and did all of this. Immediately after finishing school, they got a job. There are those that went to school. Today, they're still head hunting, feeling that frustrating form. I've not seen it, by the way. I hope it won't frustrate me when it's my time. Z83 or something that you apparently just feel it each and every second. But there are still people who are frustrated by that process. So the Tinswalo story, it's a beautiful story, but it does not speak to almost each and every household. But their household it might speak to. And this is my opinion.
30 years, Nkateko. 30 years, you know. And it's a question I was asking another pair of youth, that it's been 30 years. There are African countries that have been independent for longer than our parents have been alive. I know longer than my parents have been alive. I speak of Ghana. I'll always make reference to Ghana because it's one of the first. They've made improvements, but like a typical African country, the improvements haven't been, you know, at a pace that you would have hoped, you know, given that you take control of politics. But there's so many factors to that, right? Yeah. You guys have been independent for 30 years. 30 years. With everything you've gone through since 1948 and before that, 30 years. Are you guys not impatient, maybe? Are you not a little too impatient with the government that you're expecting all of this paradise so quickly?
Yeah, look, I think there's being impatient. There are many people, in majority in fact, who can tell the story of Tinswalo. And if they were to be honest with themselves, we are just a young democracy and we just need to be patient for this democracy. We've done well in certain areas, we've not done well in certain areas, but patience is important.
But what's patience? How long? Because again, 1957 to 2024, how long must the Ghanaians be patient? Do we want to find ourselves in that position? You get a Zimbabwe, you know, who had Robert Mugabe in power since the early 1980s. Look where they are today. He handed over the baton, you know, indirectly to Emmerson Mnangagwa. Are they any better now?
So look, we spoke about how long should we be patient, you know. I'll just make a reference of how much we spoke about the young people, because there was a trend that everyone who goes into government now is either having struggle credentials from Robben Island and so forth and so forth. That was there. Yeah. And as young people, we stepped up. We said, no, but we also want to be part of the conversation. We want to also be part of the discussions and making solutions. The president of the African National Congress Youth League is in parliament right now. He's a young person. And we've incorporated young people into that discussion of democracy. So how long do we have to be patient? Every youth must identify, or every generation must identify its mission, fulfill it or betray it. Young people now must identify their mission and fulfill it. Take it into power, take it into government and resolve it.
But what is that mission of the young people? Yeah.
This is our mission. These factors that
A lot of people have the view that young people just aren't interested. They're not wanting to register to vote. They're not interested in the upcoming elections. There's nothing that they're really passionate about. What is it that young people are fighting for?
Like I want to give a typical example of the 1976 generation. You know, you get to be patient to a certain extent. There's going to be a time where I think that we will not be able to take it. Yeah. And this will happen across the space, you know. You are more likely to might have seen a coalition government here and there in municipalities and etc. and etc. But if things don't change, no one will be impatient, because remember, unemployment is not a politically, like it's not like one-sided where he says no, it will affect maybe members of this particular. It affects everyone, you know, except the selected few, the minority who have benefited generations to generation, even have benefited their grandchildren to date. But some of this problem affect all of us, like, you know, most of us, blacks in particular. There's just going to be a certain point in time where there'll just be an uncontrolled revolt that might possibly, you know, maybe change circumstance for the best.
Okay, but we've heard the issue of unemployment. We've heard the issue of free education. What is the youth wanting? What is the youth fighting for? Besides those two pertinent issues that I'm not saying aren't relevant, they are. But what else is the young people wanting when it comes to democracy and the upcoming elections?
Look, simple. Jobs, security. We want security more, you know. Security, employment, of course education, houses, you know, an economy that is sustainable for all. For young people in particular. Load shedding must stop, because young people are also entrepreneurs who want to, you know, when you cut up, load shedding affects a lot, you know, in terms of entrepreneurship, and those are the things that we want. You want to start a business and your business to thrive, and you're looking at a situation or the government that at the time, like, you know, you're not going to have any of this problem. The supply and the demand is going to be met without any interruption.
Now, we can speak at length about the ruling party and what it is they've done or not done, and I love how you guys have you know, tried to be impartial in your analysis. To yes, we will beat you as the ruling party because you made certain promises that some of which you've not met, but you also did change the lives of a lot of people. The Dintwala story, for example. But let's just say the ruling party says, okay, fine, you've given us 30 years. We would like more, understandably, but what is the beauty of this country is it's a multi-party democracy, right? So the ruling party says, one side, right? What are they going to do for you? The purpose, I believe at least, the purpose of opposition parties and alternatives is to be disruptive, right? You guys are on the ground with the youth, with the future of this country, with the people that are supposed to take this country to the next step, right? Are they disruptive enough? Those that want the ruling party out, are they doing enough to say to you guys, yeah man, wait a minute. If I don't cast my vote to the one that gave me this freedom that I enjoy today, that I'm celebrating 30 years of, can they give me an alternative? Are you listening?
So valid, Morena, because as South Africans, I feel like we're so complacent. We'll get angry for a few weeks, and then we forget about it, and we move on to the next issue, and we move on to the next issue. Like Morena's saying, are we doing enough? Are we fighting hard enough for the change that we want to see as young people?
Just Abigail, maybe not enough, but we're fighting. You know, like I like that we're fighting, but not enough. You know, it's not enough. People get angry today, and tomorrow they are fine. Yeah, because there's another issue. You know, one leader once said, in South Africa, you get shocked every hour, every minute. Yeah, like you know, like it's today you get shocked about this. Tomorrow, while you are still angry about what happened yesterday, tomorrow there's something again that shocks you again, that you forget the trauma of yesterday because you're dealing with another trauma today. So it's a traumatic sequence of event, and maybe somehow, you know, it's what our mind have gotten so much used to, so much that you get so angry today, and that anger is not sustained, and then tomorrow, because there's something again that happens, you leave that one, something else.
And I love that you talk about it, because it's currently what is making a lot of people angry. Are you guys angry about the flag being burned?
Of course.
Does it matter to you?
Yeah.
What does it say to you? Because it says to the president that it's treasonous and that you are trampling on the unity that that flag represents. What does it say to you as the youth?
Definitely, it's disrespect. This is, we've come far as a country in democracy, uniting the country, uniting all tribes, all religion, and so forth. And for someone to reverse the gains of that democracy is definitely treason.
So is the DA racist as a party? As an institution with its ideologies?
They are racist. Historically, they are NP. We did not expect anything better from them. It is very much expected for that such behavior comes from them.
Look, I think somehow you will tell us who you are over time. That's my take. You don't have to search much. Like, even if you are to have a new girlfriend, at first you lie, you tell her, no, look, baby, heaven and earth, it's all yours. But over time, you start to show your true self. And I think that is the stage that we are in. At first it starts like, as a lie, and someone lies, no, I'll get you everything you want. And the honeymoon phase, the talking stage, at that time, everything is perfect. As time goes on, that's when you realize that, this mother, father is in fact very broke.
So now, when you're getting parties that are showing themselves with 3 weeks to go to the elections, and they are coming to your institutions and they're campaigning, and they're saying, we want your vote. They're sitting at UJ, when I'll be driving to my other employment, and I'll see, stations being put out at malls and things close to where accommodations are. Are they doing enough? Because you've got parties that are saying that, listen, this is who we are, this is what we stand for. You find it to be treasonous, okay, go vote for somebody else, right? But are all of these, again, I go back to my initial question, are all of these other parties, even the smaller ones, the new faces, Body Rise, your Bossas, and all of those, are they doing enough to say to you guys, you do have an option, even if it's not coalition, right? Which looks like it's what we're going to come the 29th of May. But are they doing enough to give you hope that, you know what, if I were to go away from that emotional attachment I have to my savior, do I have somebody else?
Right, because a lot of young people are saying when we pose these questions to them, their response is, look, I want to be involved, I want to vote, but I just don't see another option.
Yeah.
Who do I vote for? It's like they aren't getting peace and decisiveness in this is a party that I can relate to and that I'm prepared to make my mark against.
If you want to test these other political parties, test how they run their conferences, 1. 2, test them in coalition government, how well they're doing. I can tell you, most of the coalition government, when we started, were not led by the ANC or the governing organization. They were led by, these other small parties, right? Just check the progress they've made during that coalition. Very bad. Very bad. Unlike the governing organization, we can reference that, okay, we once spoke about doing this. Here we are. We've done this so much. Who else can reference? They can't reference, And I'm simply saying that, okay, they've made enough noise because we've been able to identify the wrongs that the governing organization has been doing. Very necessary that we identify those and we make noise about those. But you know what else about South Africa? We have a governing organization that is governing, and you have its young people who are also very loud to the governing organization to say that you are absolutely not doing well in this area. The governing organization was so smart to an extent that it has its footprint even in higher learning institutions through SASCO. And SASCO makes enough noise. I mean, NSFAS is one thing that the governing organization uses, And there are cracks, there's corruption in NSFAS and so forth. But the people who are making the most noise about the corruption in NSFAS and how NSFAS is not doing absolutely well is, again, SASCO.
But is that noise because you want to see positive change, or is it noise because you have political aspirations and the louder you are, you will get picked?
No, listen, because if you have political aspirations, of course they will be feathered and so forth. But I'm simply saying that you are doing this so that even the people that you're speaking to, the majority of the people, which is the student population, can also say that the leader did engage on this and we have a solution on this, because you want to also be able to be referenced as a leader to say that indeed he's solution orientated and he has delivered.
Yeah, I want to just step on what you, Abigail, have said, of course, with you, my brother. The issue around is what opposition doing enough. You know, that's a very important one. You know, in my own analysis, you know, all of these organizations, they come from the ANC, the smaller one, except of course the few others. You know, but most of them that are very agile, you know, they are coming from the ANC, which at most I don't think they are doing enough. You know, that is my opinion. I don't think they are doing enough. In fact, when you see the trend of not voting, like of young people not voting, you even see it most of the time in institutions of higher learning, where you can have about 6.8 students and then you find 1.2 voting. Yeah. The constitution of SRCs, it says one third, you know, that means at least the bare minimum. Most of the time it does not, because, you know, somehow we're not angry enough, you know. They just feel like, okay, we're not angry enough, you know. The next person is likely to do what the other one has done. They just maybe waiting for their own turn to, you know, enter into
What are you doing as leadership in institutions of higher learning to ensure that come the 29th of April, 7 o'clock, when those polls open in the morning, that you see thousands, you know, that go there?
What we did is that from last year, we've ensured that these people register to vote. Yeah. You know, registering to vote is one thing. It's one step ahead. The ones that came in first year, we had a massive voter registration. They must all register to vote so that they express themselves. You know, expression of self is the most important thing ever. That you will not always complain because you've participated in this process. Well, there's something that they teach us in these leadership schools. They say collective something. You know, when you bargain collectively, that even if we come out of this meeting, the four of us, even if I lost, but I was part of this meeting, it just means that my opinions were not enough to convince everybody else. But I participated, I formed part, you know, of everything that happens. So to make sure that all of these people form part of the decision, that on the 1st of June, everybody would have participated in whatever that is happening in the country.
Nkateko, guys, before we let you go, are we ready for the 29th of May? And when I say we, Abigail and myself are still part of the youth. You guys are part of the youth. You know, we are still a representative of our younger sisters. You know, those of us who have children, we are representing them and their futures with our votes. Come the 29th of May, will this country be, with everything about it, be ready for that election?
Look, I think we're ready for the elections, the new administration. But I think young people are ready to go and vote. Of course, the numbers show that there's been a little bit of improvement of young people registering to vote. So simply means that we've managed to convince other people to join the conversation and add to the conversation. So we've already told them to join. On the 29th of May, they're adding to the conversation.
Just in conclusion, in my opinion, I think young people have registered, students in particular, have registered to vote. The only thing left is for them to go vote. You know, it's for them to go vote. They've registered, they are being told truth, lies every day, you know, and which is fair, you know. People are manifesting every single day to them, either on Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook, all social media platform, you know. I think the current conversation we are having outside of the daily traumas that we see and experience in the country is voting. But I think on the 28th is just the day where they must just, you know, get whatever that they need to get to go and form part of this historic moment. Because in my opinion, I believe that this is history in the making. In as far as
that's why conversations like this are absolutely vital, because we're speaking to young people of our country, and I think they want to be involved. They're just looking for a way to be involved and be part of the conversation, like you mentioned earlier. But that is where we are going to wrap up episode 3 of X Marks the Spot, an eNCA podcast. It's been such a pleasure chatting to both of you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your time. It was episode 1 and 2. make sure you catch up and check it out on social media. From me and Morena, until next time. Bye-bye.